Welcome to the Half-Blood Report.
Here we discuss Percy Jackson news, interviews, and all things Ryan. I'm Samuel, your co-host.
And I'm Diego, your other co-host. Although I bet Samuel doesn't want me to be.
I did not say that. Those are your words. I'm just very tired today. But happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. So we are not recording on this kind of like Christmassy, holiday-y, New Year-y break, which means that we're actually recording this in early November. It's actually the 8th today. It is the Sunday right after we found out that our country has been saved. So
Ooh.
that's all I'm going to say about that.
The idea behind this episode is we're reviewing Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. That's too much of a title, but we're reviewing that movie. I mean, if you can call it a movie. And so with us to discuss basically this cinematic disaster is the Seaweed Brain podcast. So before we get into this movie, quote unquote, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, the laughter you've heard in the background is not disembodied voices. There are people behind those cackling cries.
Giggles. Hi.
There are.
I'm Erica. I'm here from Seaweed Brain, where we love disasters and cinema. Really happy to be here.
I'm Carter. I'm also from Seaweed Brain, and yeah, very excited to be here to guest with the big times.
Yeah, literally the famous,
times.
the famous children.
We're
I refer to you
honored.
as the famous children.
I know Samuel probably won't want to take that title, but I am more than willing to call myself that.
It's gonna be amazing to watch you guys grow up with this prodigy complex.
Diego's really not helping dispel this myth at all, is he? I guess before we kind of talk about the movie itself, we could talk about like when we kind of first watched the movie, when was like how much prep did we do for this episode and watching the movie, stuff like that. And what was kind of your experience when you first saw the movie?
Okay. I'll kind of lead us into the discussion. And I need to say, when I first watched this movie, I don't know how old I was actually. Oh God, I was probably like 8, or 9, or 9. Was I 9? So I was young. I was small. I was a unexperienced child back then. And I had been reading. I had like started to kind of read the Percy Jackson book, and by started I meant like I read like the first sentence or two, and then I saw like this. I believe for some reason it was like on Amazon or something. And I was kind of we were browsing through movies with my family. And there was this Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief movie, right? And I was like, oh wow, like a lot of people have been suggesting that book to me, and I was like, why don't we like check out the trailer and see what the movie's about? Like, I haven't finished reading the book, but I'd like to at least like
see that
what
was
it's
your
all
first
about.
mistake.
And when I watched the trailer, this is actually the reason why the Kane Chronicles was my first Rick Riordan series, because when I watched the trailer, what happened is that Kyron kind of like throws the pen at Percy, and he like whips it out, and then suddenly like this demonic thing, I was like 8 at the time, scared me. Like, I was so scared. Like the Mrs. Dodge just like leaped out from behind, and it was like this zombie creature and like almost killed Percy. And I was like, oh my God, Dad, turn it off. I'm never reading this book, right? Like,
Aww.
It's probably like so scary. So I actually didn't read the Lightning Thief because of that trailer. And then afterwards, after reading the Lightning Thief, I think it was like a couple of years later.
Kane Chronicles?
Yeah, after reading the Kane Chronicles and then the Lightning Thief, a couple years later, I actually watched the movie, and I was just so disappointed. I remember that was just like my overall experience. Like, I saw the movie and I was like, "Ooh, cool, effects and stuff." actors and people. And then, but just overall, it was just like a really disappointing experience because I had enjoyed the book, and I really liked it, and I was looking forward to like seeing this movie, um, and seeing the book on the big screen and seeing the characters brought to life. And really, it was kind of just a letdown because the characters didn't resemble the people that they had in the book, and the plot was just like thrown completely out the window. And I was actually like struggling to understand the movie that I had read the source material for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of my first experience.
Should we go?
Yeah, if you want to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, so Carter and I reviewed the movie, or like did our little conversation about the movie, I think in like June. So we watched it back then, in addition to what I'm assuming is for both of us like the first initial watch back in 2010. And then I just rewatched it for like the first half hour just now, right before this. It's as far as I could get. I don't remember seeing this the first time. I remember thinking it was bad because I had already 2010 was the year that Last Olympian came out, I believe. So we were fully immersed into the fandom already as kiddos. It was also the year that the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out. So I don't know if that had something to do with the way that they were rushing to like make this barely a movie and put it out there to like snatch up some fan base or something like that. But there were other things going on, and I just remember being disappointed. We were disappointed by the Avatar movie at around the same time also.
Oh my. Wow,
It was
that's
just a dark
We
time.
don't even want to get into that. No. Stop yourself right there. 'Cause if we start talking about the Avatar movie, I will lose my cool. I will go
Yes.
absolutely nuts.
As you
Because
should.
that was a disgrace.
And also, I'm so glad that we didn't bring that up and we didn't start a conversation where Diego lost his cool.
Deep breaths.
Yeah, keep going, Eric.
Oh, I mean, I have lots of other thoughts, but that's sort of the beginning of my, I guess, background
Yeah.
of it.
I mean,
Can
that
go
basically
into it
covers it for me too. Other than that, I didn't actually see the movie when it first came out when we were like, like what were we, like 12 or
10.
something?
We were 10.
I like watched the trailer and all of the trailers so many times because I was so I don't know what it was. Like I thought that maybe if I kept watching it, maybe the new one would be better or the next one would hold something different. But I was just so disheartened by the end of that process that I didn't end up seeing them, but I could quote like every single line of dialogue from the trailers to you from memory. And what was most disappointing about that is that I remember those all the way up until I watched the movie for the first time in like June of this year. And I feel like basically all the dialogue in the trailers was more or less all the dialogue in the actual movie, which does not actually have that much like talking in it, which is one of the many discontents I had about it. But yeah, I also just wanted to quickly say that like the experience that you had with the trailer was the same experience I had with the original Harry Potter movies, where I put off reading it for like 2 or 3 years because I saw The Sorcerer's Stone because my like
Aw.
parents made us, and oh my god, the Quirrell back of the head reveal haunted me for years, and I put it off. But that's obviously a different situation. That first movie, I think, Harry Potter on balance worked out. These movies, less so, I would say. Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, Samuel, do you wanna share kind of what your first experience was? A young Samuel, a naive Samuel.
Why am I naive?
Versus
So-
Diego the Omnipotent. From
Yeah,
birth.
exactly. Scared of the trailer.
So I think, so I can't say exactly when I watched it, but I'm probably somewhere between like 5.5 to like 9, which is so but I remember like sitting down watching it, and then I just kind of told myself that I really liked it because I knew how much I liked the books, and then so then I immediately, like, I don't think I've ever done this with any other movie, but I immediately watched it again Like I watched it
Mhm.
twice back to back. And then afterwards, I was like, yeah, I definitely still like this. And then a week later, I was like, no, I hate this movie. What am I thinking? And so that was kind of my experience with the movie because I wanted it to be so good, and it wasn't. So I basically don't think I've really watched the movie much since then. Uh, I kind of like watched some clips and stuff just now to prepare, to see
Ooh.
if it was worth watching the movie again, and I can't really go through that all once more. So I decided not to, but I read the Wikipedia plot description,
Oh
which to be
dang.
fair means that I basically went through more prep on like this review than the writers did. So for
Yep.
that movie,
Yes. Let's talk about him.
Snaps, you get snaps.
Let's talk about the person who wrote this screenplay, who I
Oh
had to
man.
Google, because just like Carter said, and also like going back to what Diego said, like I guess this movie has actors and like is filmed, but like barely.
Yeah,
It has the
people
bare
in it.
minimum requirements to count as a movie. And the big question is like, who wrote this? Because we know famously Rick was not involved in the screenplay and still to this day like has not seen the movies if I remember correctly. So I was like, who? I hopped on IMDb 20 minutes ago, and this man's name is Craig Titley. He also wrote Cheaper by the Dozen and the Scooby-Doo movie of 2002, which Carter and I have talked about recently on our podcast because it's
That's such a shame because I genuinely love that movie so much.
exactly. So
wait,
What happened,
knows?
man?
What was happening here?
wait. So how do you go from like Cheaper by the Dozen and Scooby Doo, which are like maybe not like Oscar worthy, but good movies, and then to this?
Yeah.
Uh, I
It's
mean,
yeah.
it's just the plot doesn't
It's
like
like honestly,
it's
had
the
I not
pearls.
read the book.
It's the pearls.
It's
It
the
is.
pearls.
Pearls.
It's the pearls
the
for
pearls.
me.
It is.
It's Annabeth for me. I do have a quick opinion on like how such a train wreck like this could happen, because if I don't know if anyone is watching The Mandalorian, but Dave Filoni, who is the man who brought us Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Mandalorian recently, and also the Clone Wars, and is just like an excellent animator and storyteller. He, wasn't involved in the original Star Wars movies, but he was given all these franchises because of what a big fan he was of Star Wars, and like
Mhm.
notoriously just how much he knew these fandoms and this like culture and this story. And that's why he has been able to like maintain the franchise so well and adapt it in new ways, versus like just throwing a random person who maybe worked at Nickelodeon into writing the screenplay and like entrusting this random man named Craig, who I'm sure has had an excellent career and is probably a father and is a kind man, but just throwing this at him when he probably has no deep internal love and appreciation for the
None.
Riordan verse is just criminal. And that's how you get something like this, because there isn't any like personal love and fangirling and appreciation and connection to the material.
There's nothing.
It's just death.
So the thing is, if the reason they were going to the underworld was just more similar to the reason they're going in the book, hence just no pearls, it wouldn't be a good movie. But I think it would be a passable adaptation,
Yeah.
as opposed to what we got, right? I don't think just fixing the plot itself would make the movie so much better, because you still have to deal with the age and
The
the little
dialogue,
details and the
which
casting,
is non-existent.
Non-existent
and the
dialogue.
Non-existent.
and the humor. But I think if it had a plot that works and was similar enough to the book, that would be good. But
Mhm.
I it seems like they were trying to remove less scenes, and then remove like scenes that they couldn't produce, and then they removed too many, and they're like, well, we gotta make something that kind of ties all this together because we removed the plot. And
I'll be right back.
It's been 17 minutes. The attention span of the youths these days.
I do feel a little more youthful hearing the way everyone prepared for this, because I similarly did not rewatch the movie. I just like watched. What did I do? I did a YouTube, I did an IMDb, and then I did but like specifically on YouTube, I like basically just watched like random clips from the movies. Like, you know how people re-upload like all the fight scenes from vaguely sci-fi.
Oh, I want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
The fight scenes. What was Alex Daddario doing? Did they not train her? Did she not have the same amount of training in combat that everybody else did when they were filming this movie? Because her fight scenes are so bad. It's so sad.
Erica has done stage combat. She's trained in it extensively.
That's what we need.
So,
We need a redo with. We need like not even like just like a movie. We just need like one just like fan scene of Erica doing it right.
Don't tempt me. I'm very much unemployed and also about to graduate with a degree in theater.
Oh my god. I mean we have some sway. If somebody is listening to this,
oh my god, they have some sway.
Money, okay?
No.
If you're listening to this,
Diego, please stop just saying things because you feel like it.
make it happen, people out there.
I understand that that's like the point of a podcast, but also this is very.
If anyone I know has power to influence the future of the Riordanverse franchise, it's probably these two people on this call right now.
Probably not.
I'll put all my eggs in this basket.
I mean,
direct to Rick Riordan pipeline.
Oh, okay.
We don't have that kind of power, but I'm just saying.
Well, then what did you say we do?
If you listen to this podcast and you are a kind-hearted soul who wishes to see this fandom done right in the interim between now and the Percy Jackson TV show, you know who to call.
Yep.
All I'm gonna say.
Rick Riordan.
Well, that also. Anyway.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to pick up on and what you were saying, Diego, earlier was I think the comedy and the dialogue for me is like, as much as the plot felt like really disrespectful to fandom in a way that was like a red flag, I think that I could have maybe gone along with it if the dialogue and the way that they specifically wrote the jokes weren't so bad and didn't feel so desanitized. Like, reading the books, I think we would all agree that like Percy's voice and personality is like a really important part of building up the first five. And,
yeah,
like,
it's everything, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You can't have Percy without Percy's inner monologue.
And even though they take out the inner monologue, like even the lines of dialogue that he does get are so sparse and also just so devoid of any like humor and devoid of like the snark, the you know, like the sense that this is like a person who is like not taking himself too seriously. And this is like doable. We know this is doable. Like, we've seen, I guess like Spider-Man movies is probably the closest analog of like someone who's like having these intense fight scenes and also like peppering in like a real personality. Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Stork. Yeah.
Whereas like the comedy in this movie includes such genius jokes as, quote, "This is a pen," which is of course not a joke. That's literally not a joke. I
wrote down that line, and I also wrote down it's like high school without the musical.
Yes, they repeat the line "This is a pen" like 5 times in the trailer because they think it's funny, and it's just not. The payoff in the line is just that.
Craig,
imagine believing that "this is a pen" is a joke.
It's just not.
It is a pen.
It's just observational.
I was going to say it's observational comedy.
And then like, in the fight scene where it's like Luke versus Percy, I watched this again. This is one of those, you know, clips that they uploaded to YouTube, like 2 minutes and 30 seconds of fighting. And the only things that they say for the entire clip are at the beginning, Luke says, "Maybe you're no son of Poseidon." And then there's some action. At the end, Percy says, "Yeah, I think I am the son of Poseidon." What is going on there? That's nothing. that says nothing about who they are as people, other than like I think it's very well established that Percy is the son of Poseidon. You know, like we all know the opening shot of the movie.
We know that. Like
We've been
It's-
no.
I
It's just
don't
really
know.
sad to me.
I don't know, man. It's
it's-
something that I think would have worked. Is I know it's difficult to pull off this inner monologue thing, but we needed like Clueless. That's
Yes.
That's what we needed. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to
Wait,
see.
that is a great, excellent millennial reference.
I wanted to see somebody who was struggling with thoughts in their head and who's just not even what they say, but just their thoughts are funny and engrossing, and
Mhm.
you want to know more about who they are as a person and how their story develops over the course of the movie. Well, these are bland cutouts of bad characters that I'm not even saying like whether or not they represent like the characters in the books. Scrap
Mhm.
that for a second. They're nowhere
Yeah.
near that. But just as a movie, objectively, without me having read the books, it's just not funny. It's not
Yes.
entertaining.
Nope.
None of their things worked. Nothing worked.
So the thing about Percy is like we have characters like Annabeth, who is extremely just there in this movie.
There.
Mhm.
That her
That's so right.
she's
They
there.
tried to combine
thing
her
is-
and Clarice for no apparent
Okay.
reason.
Yes, the thing is, Percy Jackson, the main character, has the least amount of personality in the film,
My God.
and like that's saying a lot for this movie. I mean,
Yeah.
That is saying a lot.
like Grover in this movie has more personality than the main character, and
Yeah. It's a
That
bad
just-
personality, but there's more.
There's more of it there.
it just astonishes me that that's like a thing.
I
that
think
can
Yeah.
happen.
I think it tracks pretty much with like Daniel Radcliffe also having no personality throughout the entirety of the Harry Potter franchise. Like Logan Lerman, I think, does a really great job in the first 36 minutes of the movie that I just rewatched. I thought Logan Lerman did a wonderful job with the little that he was given of playing like put upon young man who has no idea what's going on but is doing his best to save his mom and the world. That being said, Logan Lerman's doing his best wasn't enough to save this movie that had no
Mm-mm.
plot, and every other character was just so terribly not done correctly.
There's only so much that good actors can do for a movie, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And,
Absolutely.
and it's something where if you have good writing and good actors, you have an amazing movie, right?
Mhm.
If you have
Mhm.
bad writing and great actors, you're still gonna have a bad movie, right?
Yeah.
Versus
Mhm.
the opposite of that, having great writing and bad actors, you're gonna have a decent movie, right? Because even if the actors are bad, if the writing is good, it might not come across exactly the way you wanted it to,
Right.
but the lines will be there, the words will be there, and people will laugh, cry, or be angry, whatever it is your purpose is with that script. They will
Yeah.
do that, right? It
Yep.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you have the biggest shots in Hollywood. If your thing is a bland
Sean B.
piece of garbage with 3 lines of dialogue in the entire movie, a bunch of kiddos throwing around lightning bolts and saying not funny jokes, it's not going to work.
And not a single multi-dimensional female character. Like
Yep.
the beauty of Rick Riordan was in his ability to write such incredible female characters, even in the original Percy Jackson series, of which there are plenty of other, minor things that we could complain about. But like the fact that they couldn't
Yes.
even write 2 female characters, like they couldn't separate Clarice and Annabeth for this movie. They could have 2 female characters, and one of them had to be his mom, and the other one had to be the pretty girl that he was interested in. And we couldn't have like a full personality for Annabeth that wasn't like girl who smizes like Debbie Ryan and is like really aggressive with her knife fighting and has really brightly
Debbie
colored
Ryan
eyes.
reference was so rude. That was so disrespectful, but that's correct, I think.
It's not Alexandra Daddario's fault.
Okay, so fair point, Erica, but also you that almost implies that there's actually a multi-dimensional character in this entire movie, female or not. And so
Damn.
Good
Yeah,
point.
I think that's fair.
Daniel's coming out with the shots here.
No,
Daniel's
it's
just
true.
like, pop, pop, pop.
It's true.
Yeah,
I am going to comment on what Diego said earlier, that he left direction out of the equation, which is a little bit annoying. But just another thing about the movie is it's like I really wish that it could have, like, it's bad, right? But what I wish it could have done, which it didn't do,
Agreed.
was reach like sort of cult level bad. But it still couldn't do that. Like,
No.
it couldn't be so bad it's good. Like, it denied us
Yes.
of that as well.
Exactly.
it's
And
not camp.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it just, I don't know. It was.
I'm filled with anger.
I guess this is a pen is the closest it gets, but
This is a pen. I think we know the title of this episode.
you can't just steal a line
This is a
from.
pen 17 times. This is a pen. This is a pen. This is a pen. This movie had
This is a pen.
this movie had a $95 million budget, which, as far as movies in 2010 go, I would say is pretty darn great. $95 million.
$1 million. And the best joke you could come up with was, "This is a pen." And the most cool scene you could think up of was something completely fabricated, not based on the source material, that was bland, dull, and garbage.
Okay, I actually have a hot take about the scenes in that, like, okay, I do think that the investment is wrong. Like, the 3-act structure of the books is really present, and the movies, for some reason, they totally scrap it, and they scrimp on the beginning and the end so hard, which is why we're missing all the dialogue and the character. But I do think that some of the set pieces where they're doing these giant fights with, again, terrible dialogue and, like, you know, probably not the best stage combat training for everybody. Like, I think some of them work. And I think some of those are, like, the only things about the movie that work for me. Like, specifically, when I'm thinking about the rooftop scene at the very end of the movie, where it's Percy versus Luke, you know, it's nothing like the books, and it's so disrespectful to the fandom, which I think reflects a fundamental mistake in the movie. I need to just say a nice thing without saying all these bad things around it. Like, even though there are all of these things about it that really frustrate me, I think that, like, the visuals that they pull off with the water, and, like, the way that they incorporate the scenery of like, New York, and this creativity with, like, all these water towers, it felt to me like they got at least payoff for some of the budget there. Would I have spent the budget that way? Absolutely not. I would have spent more money on, like, you know, maybe, like, dramaturgs or other people to come through on the script, rehearsal. But I do think that there's, like, payoff for some of the things that they spent money for, even if, like, they were not the payoffs that I would have preferred the most. Yeah. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe no one else agrees with me.
I would agree, because, like, water is one of the hardest things to actually. You could have muted yourself for a second.
That was such a good sneeze. Wow.
I apologize.
There's so much personality in that.
Multi-dimensional character here.
My sneeze had more personality than me. Sorry about that, Samuel. Continue.
Well, so, like, water is really hard to do, but like, the stuff that should be easy to do, like the Hydra, just, and I'm not saying, like, it's easy to make a giant CGI monster, but in comparison to the stuff they do with the water, and it just doesn't really look good I mean, it just, and I don't know, like, that could be that it's actually, like, looks realistic, but we're just so, like, kind of dead inside, having seen so many big budget and, like, movies with stuff like that. I don't know, but your comment about the budget really made me curious. So I looked up Harry Potter budgets.
Yes.
And the Chamber of Secrets had $5 million more in its budget. I mean, that might not be the best Harry Potter movie, but it's it managed to be so much better. I
Mhm.
mean, I just don't. So I don't know like what they were doing with their money.
They
The
could
And
have
that
they
one was
could have starved the people around of coffee and single-handedly having the people on set pay for their own coffee would have given them the money they needed to make a movie like The Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah. I think that visually, actually, for the most part, I did like this movie. I liked the way that they did the Minotaur, even though the camp is very much not true to the layout of the book. I think it's really pretty. I think that like shooting in the forest was pretty. I think the way that they designed like the infirmary was kind of cool. And they had a ton of extras. Like maybe that budget was going to the background actors because they put like a
I would
thousand
be
people.
a background actor on the PJO TV show for free.
Exactly. The entire Riordanverse fandom is out here ready to be an extra for free just to free up some money in the budget for you to actually get somebody to write the script.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think legally they can't just have people show up for free.
Well,
Yes.
give me
No,
a
You're
perk.
correct.
We'll work for a
SNAG does
dollar.
not permit.
But did they really need like the girls from the Aphrodite cabin for
No!
that throwaway joke?
Oh yeah, that
no
In
was
the
one
hot
that
liked?
was
tub?
gross.
And Kyron going, "Oh, satyrs, they do what they do." That did not make
That was
me
gross.
comfortable. I did not feel
That was-
comfortable with that.
Hmm.
Not to mention that Kyron is like, there's 100 half-bloods out there in the world, and there are like 3,000 half-bloods at this camp. Where's the continuity?
Man, yeah, there's I think we should just briefly touch upon the fact that this is a book for like 12-year-olds, and this
Mm.
movie was just so many jokes that just go way over any 12-year-old's head, and
Yes.
it just has a level of like inappropriate maturity that isn't needed and isn't necessary and doesn't even achieve the goal of having inappropriate maturity.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
know
think
what
we've
you
touched on this. Yeah, they're definitely trying to pivot to a different audience that is totally like with very little overlap to the original book audience. Where like they're wanting I think they want the same kind of people who like this is and Deathly Hallows like Hunger Games is sort of rising. Like it's this time where everyone's trying to get their own piece of like the like really attractive teenagers doing vaguely post-apocalyptic things, and this franchise just is not like that's not what it's optimized for going into it. I think more so, especially than like the projects like the Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, whatever. Like it's very different from those. This project is much more about the process of like coming of age, and yeah, I don't have that much more to say there other than that I super agree with you. There was such a mismatch there that was so frustrating.
And the thing about that is, it's like it's just so weird because it makes the movie have like more in common with an Adam Sandler film than the Percy Jackson books.
Oh my.
That's so right.
And I just don't know why.
Adam Sandler would have been funnier than this movie, though.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think the one other thing I do have to say in the movie's defense, though, is that particularly like in the golden age of Tumblr, I think the movie was a good source of sort of
Gifts.
disembodied content. Yeah, like people, like the visual language of the movie was useful for people in trying to like create an idea of like what the camp might have looked like and what the characters might have looked like if they just basically dropped, everything they didn't like out of the movie, and they did. Like all the people I was talking to in Tumblr in like whatever, like 2012, 2013, when were we on Tumblr?
2012, yeah.
Like, yeah, like at that time, like the way that people talk about the movie was not like ever talking about the plot other than just say like don't watch it. They just like harvested what they wanted out of it, and we're like, okay, this is sort of what Percy looks like, and this is like this gives you an idea of, I don't know, maybe what Olympus might be like during the Council of the Gods, and I think those things were sort of, I don't know, it was, I don't know if that was like a plus for the movie as much as like something that really, I guess, more impressed me about the fandom was that like they did so well with a movie that was not for them,
Yeah. Actually, probably my most prominent relationship with the movie since 2010 has been that one gif of Logan Lerman looking up at Grover as he gets out of the pool in like that opening scene where he's like wiping off his hair and he just like smiles and like looks down and looks back up. That's been saved on my phone for 10 years. 10 years. And it doesn't mean Percy has to look like that in the Disney Plus series. He doesn't have to, and he shouldn't. He should look different. He should reflect the diversity of New York City and our actual country. But still, we have to stand him.
I don't want to talk a lot about the Sea of Monsters movie because we're going to be doing that next time. But what was which do you like more? I guess is my question.
Oh my.
Diego, I know, has not actually seen the second movie.
Hey, Samuel, I was gonna deceive them.
That's a good thing, Diego. I don't know why you're upset. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you did just get me out of picking my favorite worst movie.
That's a really hard
hard.
question.
They're
The second
both
movie is
bad.
like off the walls though. Like compared to the first movie was like a project where they're like, we are trying to focus group the bejesus out of this and like, you know, like optimize our $95 million for, you know, like, you know, troubled teens or whatever. The second movie was just, I think, like so much less focused than that. And in some ways it made it more interesting to watch. And they did some more things that could be read as like gestures towards fandom. But also like it was just way more of a mess somehow, even than the first movie. So I don't know how to rank those two things. I feel like Annabeth dies in the second movie and she comes back to life. Like,
yeah.
what?
I want to give Sea of Monsters an A for effort because they fired the writer and the director, or they quit, I guess, and they got a new writer and a director, and they bleached Alexander Daddario's hair. And
the bleaching of the hair in fandom, that was such a moment. Like, do you remember this? Like, as it happened, watching this and being like, okay, they're trying, they're putting out
they tried, and it came out like 3 years later. I think it had $5 million less dollars, but they really tried, and so I appreciate that they tried. But it again, like the plot was just not there. You guys can talk about that in your next episode. It just was also completely lacking a cohesive 3-act structure. Yeah.
Yeah. I did enjoy the second movie more. Haven't seen it in a while, so that's something that we'll talk about next time. But yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts?
No. Final, Samuel. What are you saying? I have many questions. Now that we're on the topic of bleaching hair, how big of a difference did it make?
That was the second movie.
No, not the second movie. I'm talking about the first movie. How angry were you, and expressed in clear and concise sentences, were you that her hair was not freaking blonde, which is like 50% of like the whole thing, which is like that her hair is blonde and that she's smart. That was like the entire like thing.
Okay, I'm gonna put all my cards on the table here. I talk about this all the time on our podcast. It has been a long-running frustration of mine from deep in childhood that the book spends so much time talking about people having various specific light-colored eyes and like various specific light-colored hairs because you can't tell this from the podcast, probably. I'm Asian American, so I and everyone else I grew up with has the same color hair and the same color eyes, and none of those were hair colors and eye colors that were like represented at camp at all, according to what Rick said. So when I saw the movies, there was a level in which I was like, you know, like I guess they're not taking the text that seriously, but also like I wasn't gonna like. I was not one of the people who's gonna be up in arms and saying like, we need more blonde people on screen. How will we ever manage without blonde representation? I was really mad that she like was not like smart and useful in their quest, though. That was a real bummer. Obviously. Yeah. I don't know about you, Erica.
I remember the fandom being really up in arms at the time. Like, she's not even blonde. She's not even blonde. And so I kind of joined in the chant because I was a kid. But I like looking back on it, it doesn't bother me at all because Annabeth doesn't I don't think Annabeth is blonde in my head necessarily, because again, who are blonde people? We don't know them. We did not grow up with them.
Nope.
But like I again, yeah, just like her not being useful and not being smart and being, they even dumbed her down in the Sea of Monsters, in my opinion, which is like, okay, you bleached her hair, but then you made her even more useless. So the whole Annabeth, to me, the whole thing was just wrong, and everything about it hurts me to think about.
Yeah, we're a Persebeth podcast, and the lack of Persebeth, we just need to like make even like drill down even harder and just say the lack of Persebeth, because there's no Percy or Annabeth to be in a relationship functionally as like fully realized people, was deeply upsetting for us on like a psychic level.
Yeah, to me, so I don't really care about Annabeth being blonde. The fact that they decided to bleach her hair for the second movie does make me mad, though, because like, okay, so like now you're going to do it. I mean, I feel like you. Why didn't you just put that effort in the first film?
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I see that.
I mean, like,
Did anybody
they don't
like
have to,
who was
like,
involved
for-
in the production read the book?
No, Diego, let me finish what I'm saying, okay? Okay, so it's like, I don't think Annabeth needs to be blonde, but don't tell me like, oh, okay, yeah, now we're gonna say she was blonde, like, and we're gonna do the things that will make her look blonde. Well, then you could have done that originally. Just leave her as is now, and or make her a better character. Don't change the things that don't mean things.
I don't know if they
like,
had the
make her
budget to bleach her
blonde,
hair in the first movie.
like, make her blonde with gray eyes, or just don't do it and focus on the story.
I think that's fair. I think that's really fair.
I actually have like a question to pose. Based on that, how much do you think it costs to get her hair bleached in the second movie?
$300.
I say it cost them $1,500 minimum.
It was
In my
half the
opinion,
budget.
a bleach, an ombre, or a balayage of that style at that time would have cost around $300 for the length of her hair. And if we're going to add in maybe some like specialized hair care in order to keep that color and keep it from being damaged and dry, maybe it would have added up a little bit more after that.
Okay. Okay, I have no idea what you just said, but I'll take your word for it. But yeah, I feel like the movie's just like made her really stupid, which is like, yes, the blonde thing is something that it's like, yeah, they mention it once or twice, but I think that it was mentioned a lot for it not to have like been in the movie, but it's something I can look past. What I can't look past is that Annabeth's personality in the book and her strength is that she is smart, she is cunning, she strategizes, she knows how to use the things that she has to get to where she wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, she does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The smartest
think-
thing she says in the entire movie is probably like, hey, Percy, don't die.
Hero.
Do you think that they had to write her dumber because otherwise she would have realized how stupid the plot was?
So meta.
Oh my god, that's like another level right there.
I mean, it was definitely a deliberate choice. They decided at some point in the series that they wanted, like in the development of this, that it was better for the framing of the movie for the character to be dumber. And I think we need to really like name that and hold them to the fire for that, because it's a bad choice. It's a bad choice that is like, frankly, like disrespectful, not just to the fandom, but like specifically to like, you know, like like presumably like a large part of the target audience did include, you know, women and people who like think that women are smart. And yeah, it's just,
I don't know if maybe this, I'm just thinking about this right now, trying to come up with excuses for them, but if maybe they were trying to avoid being compared to Harry Potter at the time, and so instead of having the lead trio be, you know, the cocky, optimistic hero and then the lame boy and then the really smart girl, they changed it to the cocky, optimistic hero, the really, really, really cool sidekick, and the dumb but aggressive female for spice.
Yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work.
No, not at all.
the reason they should have maybe they wanted to differentiate themselves, but they should have taken a hint in that it worked, so do
Yeah,
it. Like
exactly.
it works for a reason. It is that way for a reason. That is the trio that authors have picked,
Hmm.
and it's not because they just randomly went to like characterpersonality.com and like hit randomize like 30 times and then like did an eeny meeny miny mo or something, right? It's because it is a proven like way of writing that has been known to work and makes books engaging.
Or well, I don't think Erica and I want to like endorse this wholeheartedly because we have some critiques of like this three main character structure as well. But like, I don't think either of us would say like in response to this, you should go into the direction of like just make the woman dumb and then it's all good. Um, yeah.
I doubt that they even thought this far about it though. Like I don't think that they had a meeting where they discussed how they were characterizing these people. I just can't imagine them like sitting in a writer's room and actually talking about any of this, because then it would make at least a little bit more sense.
I think the worst part to me is that this is a Percy Jackson adaptation. Like, I think there are plenty of bad movies out there, and I can just sit happy knowing that those bad movies exist, and there's probably someone out there who really likes them. The thing about the movies is because, like, no matter how bad a movie is, there is someone out there who loves it unironically, right? And so the thing about it is that Percy Jackson, the movie, it's so bad and it's so disrespectful to the fandom and the author. Who the thing that makes me second most mad about it is that they didn't take any of Rick Riordan's advice and he offered to like rewrite it.
Yeah.
But they like there's people out there who love this movie and like this is their idea of like what Percy Jackson is. And that just like okay, I mean if you're happy that's fine, but at the same time that makes me so angry.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so that was the closest I'm going to get to a rant.
I would definitely be ranting on a little bit more if I weren't trying to calm myself and reflect a relaxed, level-headed human being.
I mean, you've already like ranted like 5 times, right?
5 times.
So...
I'm gonna do it again.
Oh
Can we just talk about how like the entire setup like for this book is the fact that Percy is somebody that nobody wants, right? He keeps getting moved from place to place. He doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have anybody he can relate to. And the only person in his life is basically his mom. And then suddenly you shoot him into camp and then all's fine and dandy and it's just fixed. That's not realistic. I mean, like, and about these meetings that they're having, how do you give somebody $95 million, right? Let's just think about this. Like, okay, that might not be too big for a movie budget or whatever. Have you ever seen $95 million in your life? Exactly.
No.
Exactly. And most people haven't, and most people won't, right? So then why are we giving this absurd amount of money? Because even if you're a big budget studio, even if you're shelling out billions every single day, you still have to have some sort of conscience attached to giving somebody $95 million and the rights to a fandom, right? Like,
no.
you have to have something behind that. And then
The
what
answer is
happens,
once again no.
No, that's
Counterpoint. Capitalism
No.
is.
okay.
Diego. I think 20th Century Fox is perfectly content with the money they're still making off of it.
I guess.
True. It
But
recouped
my
the box
point is, how do
You know
sit?
how many people signed up for Disney Plus just to like watch this and make themselves angry again?
I did watch it immediately when Disney Plus came out.
Well, I mean, I guess they're seeing some return on it. But how do you sit as a writer? Because I assume these people have degrees, right? like they did college, they did school, right? Like they
Oh
know how to
my.
add, they know how to do math, right? And these people, maybe they have no critical thinking, or maybe they don't understand, but these are people in a business, and these people are doing this business, and this is their career, this is their livelihood.
It
And
was until they embarrassed themselves.
exactly, maybe. But how does this even happen? Like there were meetings. People had to sit, like, this wasn't Zoom calls where everybody was like muted and without video and just watching TV in the background. Like these people were sitting in a room with each other, and they consciously decided to do this. They consciously said, "Hey, this is the movie." And then they went out on set, and however long it took them to film, and they filmed that. And the man behind the camera sat there watching through the lens, doing the things, getting the takes. And you're telling me at no point in this entire production, nobody was ever like, "Hey, maybe we should try to do a movie. Maybe we should try to have characters. Maybe we should try to like read the Wikipedia page about the book. Maybe we should try to like maybe get some sort of person who knows what they're doing, right? Cuz like they have people who have read the books on to like, give them some sort of something. And you couldn't spend $50 to have a guy come in for an hour and explain to you what the book was.
Yeah, I
I
approve
think
of this rage. Go ahead, Samuel. Go ahead.
Yeah.
yeah,
Kind of
I
rant.
think the kind of best thing that could be said about like making the movie better is kind of like what Erica said at the beginning. Like the creative team just did not care when they made this. The creative team was like, okay, I'll get a paycheck at the end of the day. And that is kind of the main problem behind this movie, that no one cared really about making a movie that would sort of make a lot of people happy, right? So, okay, I'm obviously not all these people and I couldn't like speak for them, but I'm saying just from the finished product and from like what I know about these people, I I I mean, I just don't think they really cared about the source material or like the people that would be watching this. And they just were like, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, I've done this before. I can probably do it again the
Yep,
same level. And
exactly.
at the same
Yes.
time, I mean, I think just something about this movie is like they just wanted it. I don't think they wanted it really to sort of be the next Harry Potter. I think they just wanted to say, hey, look, we're going to be the next Harry Potter. I don't think they were actually trying to do that. I think they were just trying to look like they were going to be. And I think there was this idea that kind of mediocrity sells, in that like if they made an
Yes.
average
Yes.
movie with like average people as
Absolutely.
the main characters, then like that would make money, which I mean they're not wrong, but the thing is they were so lazy that they failed at the mediocrity, and so it's not mediocre, it's bad, and then you got a bad movie, and that's what we have now.
I completely agree. I was also going to
Yes.
say that in answer to Diego's rant, that like it's just straight up disrespectful. It's just disrespectful because had they not sat down and had these meetings, that means that they just figured they could do it. They were like, "Oh, I get this. This is easy. This is a kids' teen movie, whatever. I know what this is, and I'll get it done." With complete lack of understanding and respect for the magical power of Rick Riordan's world that he crafted. Like the power of these books is just disrespectful to the importance of the story that deserves the time and effort to retell it and adapt it in the right way.
Yes. And I think this is a good time to like formally like speak out to the Disney Plus people who I'm sure are already aware of this, and Rick's already more involved, I understand, on that project, but like just so we're like clear on the market understanding of this, even if all you care about is like the biggest return on your investment possible, like it is 2020, like the market is fragmented, right? And particularly if you want to make a TV show on a streaming platform be successful over a long period of time, like this is not the correct approach. Like the correct approach is not to try to net in a bunch of like half interested people with like a shirtless Logan Lerman in your trailer, right? Like the right approach is to like really dig deep and figure out like why did this, like there's so many fantasy properties that exist that are marketed towards the same audience, but most of them, dare I say, almost all of them, if not all of them, are not as beloved as this one. So clearly there is something at work here. And I think that it would really be beneficial to these people's bottom lines, even if they don't care about the personal joy that we sitting here together in this virtual space would get. If they just, like really take seriously the idea that like fandom
Power.
is like the right strategy. Fandom is power. Fandom is like, as much as, like I don't want to endorse like this vision of like capitalist consumption, like, like it's the best model for you to get a return on your investment at this point with the kind of content model that you're going for. So please learn the lessons from this. I don't know if they're listening to this. This is the Bigger Deal podcast than ours, but like, please.
Amen.
Thank you. That's I think with that we can end on that deeper note, on that call for help, on that cry to the people who are doing this. And just
This
let them
episode
know,
is such
hey,
a bummer.
There's people behind the money, right? And you're gonna make more money if you appeal to those people.
Mm.
And
I'm so
with
sad
that,
now.
I think we can conclude this long, drawn out, angry
Diego tries
sad
to. Diego, you've been doing something recently as we
episode
record, where you
segment.
like try to like end the episode as if you were writing a conclusion to a 5-paragraph essay.
Aww.
What do you think? What do you think I am, Samuel? I am the master of conclusions to 5-paragraph essays.
And that's on confidence. And getting into college.
Yes, love that for you.
But just in general, thank you guys for being on the podcast with us. Thank you.
Thank
For-
you so
for
much for
It's
having
great
us.
a scream to be here.
Thank
This is such
Thank
an
you
honor.
for listening to us and humoring us in our angerness. But of course, you guys are on this podcast. There's a bunch of people listening. Why don't you let people know where they can find you, where they can support you, where the little button is that they can throw money at you?
We're Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Overcast, all those good places. We talk about Percabeth once a week, and we really dive into Western civilization and its joys, but mainly problems.
Yes. We just wrapped up like our coverage of the original book series. We've sort of gone chapter by chapter, and we have done and we're going to continue doing a few more special episodes diving into the topics that we care about the most, like sort of in and around Percy Jackson. We did one about queerness in Greek mythology. We're going to be doing one about like Percabeth itself, Western civilization itself in the context of the books. So yeah, you should hopefully check us out. We also have a movie episode where we I believe our guest also makes the same reference to Clueless in terms of a good example of what the narrative voice for Percy should have been. So yeah, you can check that out too. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
And then
yeah.
and then I'll just say, if you liked this episode, and if you thought it was a good episode, and if Carter and Erica have made the true Diego and Samuel come out, then you should totally go listen to their podcast. Because it is all that fiery rage that you want to listen to.
Dare I say we are this angry every time.
Oh yeah, I'm actually annoyed that Diego took to plugging you guys at the very end, because I'm the one who actually listens to the other Percy Jackson podcasts. People out here faking it. Yeah, no,
faking it. These people are amazing, Samuel. I don't have to listen to their podcast to know that these are good people who are angry and who yell, and who my sister told me do a good podcast.
Aww.
Yes, they do a good podcast, as me and Diego's sister know. So check them out. They do each book in 3 to 4 parts, and they just kind of dissect how awesome Percabeth is and how sad Western civilization is. So
You should write our new tagline.
Yeah.
And that's it for this episode of the Half-Blood Report. I hope you enjoyed that Hephaestus TV segment. It feels really weird because, as we announced on Instagram, we went on a bit of a hiatus, and this was recorded in early November, and I'm editing plus recording this outro basically 2 months later. But it feels really good to be back and get back in the groove of podcasting. Special thanks to Carta and Erica from Seaweed Brain for joining us. Definitely check them out. You can follow the show on Twitter at HalfReport. You can also find us on Instagram at TheHalfBloodReport or email the show at TheHalfBloodReport@gmail.com. We also have a website, TheHalfBloodReport.com, and please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We read and respond to those on our seasonal mailbag episodes. And I would like to give a special thank you and shout out to our patrons currently supporting us. We have Magnus, Chase, and Finian. Huge thanks to them for supporting us through our hiatus. They help keep our show going by paying for our hosting service and website. And you can read more about our Patreon and consider subscribing at patreon.com/join/TheHalfBloodReport. And that link is also in the description. That said, it's time for credits. Our theme music is actually by my co-host Diego. I do our editing. I'm Samuel, and this is the Half-Blood Report podcast, the only HBR that matters. Survive till next week.